Mes chers collègues, la séance est ouverte. Je vous rappelle que vous devez insérer votre carte de vote pour pouvoir prendre la parole ou voter. Pour demander la parole, veuillez appuyer sur le bouton « Request ». En outre, comme indiqué ce matin, je vous rappelle que les membres n'ayant pas soumis de déclaration annuelle d'intérêt devront commencer leur intervention par une déclaration d'intérêt oral conformément au paragraphe 20 du Code de conduite des membres de l'Assemblée parlementaire. L'ordre du jour appelle la suite de la discussion du rapport d'activité du Bureau et de la Commission permanente, présenté par M. Franck Joab, DOC 1698 et Addendum 1 et 2, et du rapport de M. Simone Billy au nom de la commission ad hoc du Bureau sur l'observation des élections législatives en Albanie, 11 mai 2025, présenté ce matin par Mme Luz Martinez Seijo, DOC 16201, en l'absence de M. Billy qui nous a rejoints cet après-midi. Nous poursuivons donc la discussion générale entamée ce matin. Je rappelle que la durée d'intervention est limitée à 3 minutes par orateur. Le débat devant être terminé à 17h30, je devrais interrompre la liste des orateurs vers 17h25. Dans la discussion générale, la parole est à M. Vardagnan. Merci. Vous avez la parole.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. So, another year, another part-time session, another progress report, and once again, we have more questions than answers. We have more challenges than solutions. For sure, it's very complicated to speak about the protection of human rights, about the respect towards rule of law and promotion of democracy in the environment that the rule-based order is totally damaged. Nevertheless, being a human rights organization which was based and is based and would be based on the values, it's quite important to react adequately in the cases of each and every violation of international law. It is impossible to guarantee the implementation of our core documents without providing the guarantee of existence to international humanitarian law. And from this perspective, it is quite important not to differentiate between violations committed by our friends or violated by our enemies. The violation is violation, and without adequate reactions towards this kind of violation, it is impossible to guarantee the implementation of international humanitarian law, international human rights law, international law as such. For sure, ladies and gentlemen, you probably know that from time to time several member states of our organization are trying to challenge the very existence of the European Convention of Human Rights, trying to raise issues concerning how it should be implemented. And here I would like just to say very precisely that it is impossible to guarantee the protection of human rights without full respect toward the European Court of Human Rights, European Convention on Human Rights, and the judgment of the European Court of Human Rights. The European Convention on Human Rights wasn't created for a comfort zone for the states. It was created as a comfort zone for those who are living in the Council of Europe. And from this perspective, it is quite important to guarantee the full-fledged implementation of the guarantees prescribed in that document. And hence, we should continuously work with our member states, explaining that there is no zone for comfort when we are speaking about protection of human rights, and the respect towards this organization should be provided. But to provide the proper respect towards this organization itself within its institution should provide respect. For example, when the Committee of Ministers addressed to this Assembly for the statutory opinion and got it, at least it is not very constructive not to implement any even minor recommendations stated in this statutory opinion. Thank you so much.
Merci pour votre intervention. Madame Juaz, vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much, honourable members. Albania's recent 2025 parliamentary elections mark another important milestone on the country's democratic and European path. According to the OSCE, the elections were generally well organised and competitive, with the Central Election Commission managing the process in an inclusive and transparent manner. We welcome the introduction of voting abroad, which functioned effectively despite logistical challenges and delayed political agreement. We also note that the creation of a new coordination mechanism for investigating electoral offences as a positive step, though it must be followed by a consistent enforcement. We must acknowledge that Albania has made meaningful progress. The technical conduct of the election was strong, and the institutional capacities are clearly improving. These are encouraging signs. Hungary has a broader position, remains unchanged. We continue to support the EU integration of the Western Balkans, including Albania, in a manner that is merit-based, credible, and anchored in democratic values. The parliamentary results maintains political stability, allowing for the consistent continuation of the reforms necessary for the integration's aspirations. It could be helpful for further advancement of accession negotiations and the adoption of EU standards. Hungary is a committed supporter of the EU enlargement process. We are very hopeful that this very encouraging progress is continuing. The progress of the EU integration in the Western Balkans are of paramount importance, because we do believe, and I do believe, that the EU integration cannot be successful without a successful enlargement process. So these are positive and encouraging sides. Thank you very much indeed.
Merci pour votre intervention. Monsieur Kern, vous avez la parole. Monsieur Kern. Nous allons passer à Madame Guilametti. Madame Guilametti. Ah, excusez-moi, vous avez la parole.
Ms. President, esteemed colleagues, let me start by thanking the rapporteur, Mr. Bill and Ms. Martinez, for the report on the parliamentary election in Albania on 11 of May, presented here today. As the head of the Albanian delegation to PACE, it's an honor for me to address this assembly, and not just for the fact the Albanian people once again place their trust in the Socialist Party, but because their continued support to the Socialists, now for the third consecutive term, it's a powerful expression of Albania's strong commitment to progress and to the European path. But more than a political victory, it's a call to govern with greater responsibility in line with the values that unite us here: democracy, transparency, inclusion, and the rule of law. We are proud that this election was recognized as inclusive, transparent, competitive, and professionally managed in a free and calm environment. According to the International Observer, as indicated in this report, 95% of the polling stations were assessed positively. As such, it recognized the hard work of thousands of election officials and institutions across the country and show how far our young democracy has come. We are proud of the historic inclusion of our diaspora, enabling Albanians abroad to participate in shaping the future of our nation for the first time. I would also highlight the essential role of SPAC, Albania's Special Anti-Corruption Structure, which in coordination with the General Prosecutor Office and the Central Election Commission, played a key role in preventing and investigating electoral crimes in order to preserve the integrity of the process. Their work is a proof that rule of law in Albania is a principle, but also an active and growing reality. At the same time, we acknowledge the concern raised in the report, for which we will pursue our work responsibly to address this as soon as possible. More specifically, we remain committed to advance electoral reform, depoliticization of electoral bodies, improving campaign finance and media freedom, in full alignment with the recommendation of the Venice Commission and ODIHR. Dear colleagues, Albanian determination to continue the path to reform is not just about membership. It's about standards and values. It's about building a society where citizens trust their vote, believe in their institution, and feel represented in every level of governance. As such, it encouraged us to continue our work with humility and determination, not just to meet standards, but to live up to them. Thank you.
Merci pour votre intervention. Madame Haber, vous avez la parole.
Madam President, dear colleagues, as an election observer in the region of Flesh, I share the conclusion that the voting process was calm. However, I also received credible reports indicating that the ruling party made extensive use of administrative resources during the campaign period, raising serious concerns about the fairness of the election environment and the undue advantage of incumbency. Another troubling aspect of the parliamentary elections in Albania was the low voter turnout, just 42.2%. Fewer than half of the population cast their votes, which reflects a concerning lack of trust in democratic institutions. This also means that the election results do not fully reflect the voice of society as a whole. What was particularly alarming was the lack of participation among young people. Our team's interpreter and driver, both in their 20s and university students, outright refused to vote, no matter how much my colleague and I tried to persuade them. They expressed deep disillusionment with the political system and could not see any meaningful differences between the policies of existing parties. They were tired of the polarized political landscape and the politicians' inability to cooperate for the good of the country. Moreover, they felt that political platforms lacked concrete proposals in several key areas, such as education system, housing policy, and plans to encourage young people to remain in Albania instead of seeking opportunities abroad. Is it essential that all political parties in Albania make a greater effort to attract young voters by presenting proposals that are relevant and appealing to them? Equally important is ensuring that more young people are given a place on electoral lists. A more open and transparent nomination process, not one where party leaders effectively decide who gets on the list, would encourage a greater number of candidates to step forward, including young people. At a time when democracy is in decline in many parts of the world, it is vital that young women and men believe they have the power to shape a better future, that they see themselves as active citizens.
Merci pour votre attention. Monsieur Gevorgian, vous avez la parole.
Dear colleagues, in 2022, the Armenian authorities recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. That recognition did not bring peace. Instead, it encouraged Azerbaijan to advance new territorial claims, and today Azerbaijan is aggressively promoting the concept of so-called Western Azerbaijan. This is not a humanitarian initiative, but a geopolitical project aimed at the eventual takeover of Armenian territories under the pretext of repatriating Azerbaijanis. This is not a human rights issue. This is an attempt to undermine the sovereignty of Armenia through carefully orchestrated hybrid pressure, demographic manipulation, historical revisionism, and infrastructure demands, all strategically aligned. It is an expansionist project cloaked in humanitarian language for creating the legal and ideological foundation for demographic transformation and future control of Armenian regions. The Turkic world has already demonstrated such ethno-political annexation strategies in northern Cyprus and in parts of northern Syria. Armenia may well be the next target. Madam Chair, these days, the escalation of military confrontation between Iran and Israel may be used by Turkic coalition to gain control over Armenia's southern regions. Beyond the likelihood of military aggression, a so-called migration scenario appears increasingly realistic. It would involve a demographic expansion into southern Armenia under the pretext of influx of so-called ethnic Turkic refugees, thereby undermining Armenia's sovereignty, not by war, but by design. We must recognize the shift in tactics, but the objective remains the same: to limit Armenia's ability to exist as a sovereign, self-determinate state and to have solved the Armenian issue. Many people ask me, what can Europe do to resist all this? First and foremost, do not legitimize the dictatorial regime of Ilham Aliyev. This is not just about Azerbaijani gas, oil, or multi-billion euro investments. Europe plays a direct role in strengthening an authoritarian regime. For example, by actively supporting COP29 in Baku, even after the ethnic cleansings of Armenians and so-called presidential and parliamentary elections held under authoritarian rule. Even more disturbing was the recent announcement that the European Political Community Summit is to be held in Baku in 2028. Azerbaijan may attempt to fully implement its Western Azerbaijan project and use yet another European summit to legitimize the outcome. Dear colleagues, it is time to stop the confronting narratives that pose a threat to regional stability and peace. We should also be concerned that the modern history of democracy's capitulation to authoritarianism is being written. Thank you.
Merci. Merci pour votre intervention. Madame Bouchka, vous avez la parole.
Madam Speaker, distinguished colleagues, let me begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to the mission that observed the elections in Albania. Your presence and assessment are essential contribution to democratic processes and a valuable part of our shared European standard. I am pleased to note that your report confirms what many of us witnessed. The elections were free, fair, and competitive. This is a strong signal that the democracy in Albania is not only functioning, but strengthening. According to your findings, the process was conducted in a regular and orderly manner in 95% of the polling stations that were monitored. This is a significant achievement and reflects the serious commitment of Albanian institutions, political actors, and civil society as well. One of the most encouraging aspects of this election was the clear prevention of electoral crime, a fact you have rightly emphasized in the report. This progress is not accidental. It is as a result of the coordinated efforts and, importantly, of the recommendation made by the Albanian Parliament back in 2024. That recommendation called on special prosecution, the General Prosecution and the Central Electoral Commission to act in coordination to combat criminal phenomena in election. And this time, the coordination delivered real results. Last year, Albania successfully transited from the monitoring phase to the post-monitoring phase. This milestone reflects the maturity of our institutions and the reforms undertaken. But democracy is a constant effort, and election monitoring, such as that carried out by the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, plays a vital role. It helps us uphold and strengthen the core principles of democracy and the rule of law. To do this effectively, however, we must rely on facts, clear criteria, and constructive engagements. Vague phrases such as "we heard," "they told us," do not support this purpose. They risk undermining the credibility of the process we all value. Nonetheless, I welcome the recommendation made in the report on the need to further depoliticize the election administration, an objective of the socialist majority that we have had consistently supported for years. Unfortunately, this yet has to be achieved due to lack of broad political consensus. In closing, I thank you once again for your efforts and observation. Let us continue working together with transparency and mutual respect so that our member states continue to improve and serve as stronger examples of democracy in action. Thank you very much.
Merci pour votre intervention. Madame Vokshi, vous avez la parole. Madame Vokshi. Allez-y, merci.
Dear colleagues, thank you for the Council of Europe's presence during the 11th of May elections in Albania, which offered a valuable view into the reality on the ground. A report acknowledges serious concerns, but the truth is much more alarming. When the vote is not free, democracy does not exist. There must be no double standards for EU member and for candidate countries like Albania. So I ask you, can election be democratic when most of the Copenhagen criteria were systematically, brutally violated? ODIHR says that. When the state and the ruling party act as one, when civil servant voters, candidates are threatened through patronage network and by criminals wearing fake observer badges inside polling station and outside, while law enforcement look away or intervene too late even after elections. When media is totally controlled, weeks before the elections, Prime Minister approved 138 cannabis cultivation licenses, 147 times more than the law allows, covering 29,000 hectares close to the borders. And a ruling party swap saw a sharp vote increase in those regions. This is not a democratic process, it is a national security threat. 402 million in public funds were misused to buy votes and manipulate outcomes. 100 bonuses for 750,000 pensioners, 42% of the voters. 200 million in forgiven fines only 2 days before the elections. Jobs, subsidies, tenders, and high-profile events turned into tools for more votes. The vote was bought with taxpayers' money as well. I've taken part in many elections, but never ever I've seen and witnessed such this time. In Vora, I was threatened in daylight by criminals convicted for murders and drug trafficking, and my colleagues know that very well. My daughter as well was threatened in front of the polling station. Despite calls to the police and official report to SPAC, Special Prosecutor Office, no one acted. Those criminals still are free, and I fear till my daughter till my daughter comes home. So I ask again, are these free elections when women candidates must face cartels instead of political parties? I didn't enter to politics to carry a gun, but to offer an alternative based on truth. That right was denied to me because of the links between high officials, prime minister, ministers, to the organized crime. Should I remain silent, quiet, but fearful? No, I will not. We must speak up for our daughters, for our families, and for every woman who wants to serve without fear. If you can allow me only a few more seconds. If we don't act now, we hand politics to those protected by crime and not democracy. 28 candidates in 10 districts were supported by criminal groups and cartels. Over 20 of them will be in the next parliament. And who knows, maybe they will be sitting in this area as well. And I don't want this to happen. So I urge you to support a fact-finding, just a few more seconds, fact-finding mission to Albania. Assess the criminal influence and democratic failures. I have submitted a short video for this plenary, but it didn't show, so whoever, to see yourself what happens. So I call on every woman MP in this, which is here today. We must not tolerate this. We have to stand with each other, to stand together to create an environment where women can do politics and serve to the country with dignity. Thank you very much.
Merci pour votre intervention. Madame Kravchuk, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, at the same time when we were sitting at the committee sittings, joint committee, the body of 11-year-old girl was taken out of the debris of the residential apartment building in Kiev. That was ruined by Russian drone and Russian missile. Before that, the body of her mother were taken out of the same building. And the father, who was not at that time at the building, was waiting for 8 hours to find out whether they are alive or not. They were 8th and 9th out of those who were killed in this residential apartment. I'm speaking with these details because I know how hard it gets through the Western media about the constant attacks. You know, it's been more than 3 years, but I feel an obligation to give this information because there is the escalation, there is the pressure that Russia wants to put, and that's pure terrorism because they are targeting civilian infrastructure. We had in just a few weeks ago the visit of network on Ukrainian kids to Kiev, and members of delegation of PACE, also Secretariat, had to sleep in the bunker, had to sleep in the basement because there was another big attack, and that's what's going on. And Russia is actually trying to to make the life unbearable, especially of civilians. What we can do, and what I ask you to do, is to go back to your countries, ask your ministries of defense what more they can do on the air defense, because these air defense, especially anti-drones, can save children's lives, can save people's lives. And what you can do is ask what more sanctions could be put to Russia that they are running out of these war chests, because they still have money to produce these drones, they still have money to produce these missiles that fly and kill people. And it's very important that this session could be historical, and I'm sure that it will be historical, and we will see the special tribunal signature of the treaty on special tribunal. And it means that the respect to human rights and international order is something that this chamber values, that this organization values, and we have a future. And last and not the least, Mr. Schwaber mentioned the debate on Radio Free Europe. In Malta, I mentioned Vladislav Yesepenko, the journalist who was in prison for more than 4 years, and he was released just a few days ago. So there are at least some good news in this period, and I really hope to welcome Vladislav Yesepenko to speak to you about what he experienced in Russian prison. Thank you.
Merci pour votre intervention. Monsieur Ruider, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and colleagues. I want to start by just saying thank you to the rapporteur and the observation team for their work on the election in Albania. I found the analysis extremely valuable, and the report reflects a mixed picture. The calm and peaceful conduct of the vote, the work the authorities have done to improve technical processes, and the greater ability for voters to engage are all a sign of real progress and a sign that we should be recognising here. The introduction of out-of-country voting for the first time was also a big landmark. I represent a vibrant Albanian community in Northampton, and my constituents were able to take part in these elections in a way that they never could before. It strengthened their connection to their homeland. And it's enabled them to have a democratic voice. And so I do endorse the rapporteur's call for the authorities to carry out a proper assessment of how out-of-country voting went in practice, so we continue to improve it and make democracy accessible for all Albanians. But we have to be mindful of the concerns raised: the reported corruption, blurred lines between state and party, the misuse of administrative resources, pressure placed on public sector workers, allegations of vote buying, and very worryingly, still the systematic problems that limit women in participating. They're not new challenges, and they will not disappear without real political will. Behind all of this lies what the report calls the winner-takes-all political culture. When elections are treated as a zero-sum contest for power, with little space for dialogue, the public loses faith in politics. And that's particularly true for young people who already feel underrepresented and disconnected. Democracy should extend beyond just election day. It should reflect genuine choice, active civil engagement and media freedom. And those are the values that this council has a duty to defend. So colleagues, I did choose to speak today not just because of my commitment to this institution, but because of the pride and hope I see in the Albanian community I'm honoured to represent back home. The Albanian Cultural Association, led by the brilliant Ilona Latifi, is a fantastic example of democratic spirit in action. It's a lifeline for identity, inclusion and civic pride. They're an example of how a diaspora can build stronger and kinder communities. And I always have a place in my heart for celebrating Independence Day with them, dancing in the centre of Northampton. The way they've welcomed my team has been really lovely. So speaking today, I want to honour them. As we consider this report and our wider work, we must remember that whilst we're here to represent our representative governments, first and foremost, we must represent the people in our constituencies. And by considering reports like this and defending the pursuit of democracy, we can continue to expand fairness and transparency across Europe, which will benefit all of us here today. Thank you.
Merci pour votre intervention. Monsieur Goncharenko, vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much. Today is the first day of our assembly. And you know, we meet one another and you all ask me, how are you? I just want to ask you, don't ask me this anymore. Comment ça va? Don't ask me this. Because I feel really bad. Polite wording to say, I am good, I am not good. This night, Kiev was under attack. European capital did not sleep at all. Many people would never wake up. An hour ago in Belgorod-Dnistrovsky town near my native Odessa, there was Russian missile hit on school. 2 people killed. Am I good? No, I'm not good. To tell you everything is bad, in this case I feel myself, like a very ill person with leprosy, which shows its wounds, and you are becoming embarrassed. I am watching at our agenda. I see what we have today. We have gender equality issue. I want to tell you, we are very equal in Ukraine, with equal chances to be killed by Putin. I see women's rights issue. I want to tell you, the most important right that Ukrainian women are deprived of is the right to live, just to live. We have sport issue here. The main sport in Ukraine is to run to shelter quicker than Russian missile will run into you. This is the main sport we live with. We have a topic of the war in Middle East, how to end the war. How we want to advise how to end the war in Middle East if we can't end the war in our member state, in Ukraine. By the way, sometimes it looks like Middle East is Middle East, and Ukraine, at least for some of you, is Far East. Just imagine, you live in a very beautiful neighborhood, and in one of the houses, maniac penetrated, and he kills and rapes every day, screams, blood. At the beginning, the whole neighborhood is shocked. But with time, some people are starting to say, oh, maybe they just didn't lock the door. It's their fault. Others are making TV louder, not to hear the screams. Some are just giving some food to this house. But what really should be done? The neighbors should come together, go and kick out maniac from their neighborhood. And before you will do this, please, don't ask me, how am I? Don't ask me, comment ça va? We are bad.
Merci pour votre intervention. Madame Roth, vous avez la parole.
Honourable colleagues, I would like to thank the Rapporteur for his exceptional work acting as the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe's head of delegation during the joint observation mission's monitoring of the May 2025 parliamentary elections in Albania. I'd also like to commend all of those involved in the joint observation mission, which drew on 365 observers from 47 countries. The Rapporteur noted that there were many positive aspects in relation to the parliamentary elections in Albania. The elections were competitive and professionally managed, and for the first time, the authorities organized out-of-country voting and candidates could mostly campaign freely. Furthermore, Election Day was reported to be generally calm and well organized. Even so, the Joint Observation Mission highlighted certain shortcomings. Among various concerns, it noted that there were numerous reports of pressures on public employees and other voters, as well as cases of intimidation. The independence and diversity of the media were undermined by untransparent financing, ownership concentration, and interference with editorial autonomy. They had a negative impact on the amount and quality of election-related information available to the public. In addition, the electoral campaign was characterized by a confrontational and polarizing tone. As a Canadian parliamentarian, it was with great interest I noted that the Joint Observation Mission found that the elections were marked by widespread misuse of public resources and institutional power by the ruling party. According to the mission's preliminary findings, the law prohibits the use of state resources in support of campaigns of electoral contestants. Nonetheless, it found that shortly before and during the campaign period, ministers and the Prime Minister engaged in official events, held inspections of facilities, promoted investment in infrastructural projects, overall contributing to the advantage of the ruling party and at times explicitly campaigning. While not an identical situation, there are parallels with the Canadian electoral landscape. In Canada, the incumbent federal government can advise the Governor General on the timing of an election within the 4-year electoral cycle. Now, I would argue that this authority gives the sitting administration a distinct electoral advantage, allowing it to announce large-scale policies and projects prior to the dissolution of Parliament. Simply put, through such high-profile announcements, the government's incumbency allows it to help set the political agenda in the run-up to the elections. Canada, in the Canadian campaign period, it can be as little as 37 days. Thus, the government in office can make a significant impact on voters before the writ is being dropped. Canada just finished its own elections, and Ontario has a vibrant Albanian community, including in London, Ontario, where I represent. So I would once again like to thank the rapporteur for his work and congratulate the Albanian authorities on running a competitive and professionally managed campaign. Thank you, colleagues.
Merci pour votre intervention. Monsieur Gras, vous avez la parole. Vous devez insérer la carte.
Oui, la carte est insérée. Merci, Madame la Présidente. Affirmer que l'élargissement de l'Union européenne connaît un regain de dynamisme n'a rien d'exagéré. Aujourd'hui, les Balkans occidentaux sont au cœur de cette dynamique, l'élargissement y représentant un outil stratégique de stabilisation, de paix et de prospérité pour l'Union européenne. Parmi les pays concernés, c'est l'Albanie qui se distingue par ses avancées concrètes. Depuis l'obtention de son statut de candidat, le pays a entrepris des réformes pour se rapprocher des exigences européennes. Le processus d'alignement est visible dans plusieurs domaines. Longtemps considéré comme un des pays les plus corrompus de l'Europe, l'Albanie a amorcé un tournant décisif. L'épuration du système judiciaire, la destitution de juges et procureurs compromis, ainsi que le rôle actif de la structure SPAC dans la lutte contre la corruption et autres phénomènes à l'encontre des principes européens ont permis de restaurer une confiance croissante dans les institutions. Cependant, ces efforts doivent se poursuivre sans relâche. Une Albanie encore plus libre et démocratique devrait être l'objectif. À cet égard, les élections de mai dernier ont marqué une étape importante avec la participation inédite de la diaspora. Si les élections ont été globalement bien gérées, certaines lacunes subsistent. J'étais moi-même présent en tant qu'observateur pour l'OSCE. Une réunion préparatoire a été organisée à Tirana, en amont des observations sur le terrain, avant le déploiement de ma mission à Saranda, dans le sud du pays, à la frontière grecque. D'après les observations de la délégation luxembourgeoise, les élections législatives s'étaient passées d'une manière satisfaisante et nous étions bien accueillis dans les bureaux de vote. L'organisation électorale albanaise présentait plusieurs éléments notables en matière de contrôle des listes électorales, notamment l'affichage d'une liste des électeurs aux fenêtres de chaque bureau de vote. Les bureaux de vote étaient équipés d'un appareil électronique permettant l'identification des électeurs à l'aide de leur carte d'identité. L'OSCE signalait de son côté qu'en amont des élections, certaines intimidations avaient été exercées envers une partie de l'électorat. L'existence d'une application permettant de voir les personnes qui ont voté ou non constituait un autre point critique relevé par l'organisation. Selon les conclusions préliminaires de l'OSCE, les élections se sont déroulées quand même correctement. Le processus d'adhésion à l'Union européenne se poursuit ainsi, l'Albanie ayant le statut de candidat membre. Cette continuité constitue l'un des éléments les plus importants de ces élections. Le pays connaît une ambiance de renouveau, notamment d'un point de vue économique avec l'émergence de nombreuses nouvelles entreprises et un fort investissement dans le secteur touristique. En conclusion, l'Albanie est sur la bonne voie vers une adhésion à l'Union européenne. Ces progrès sont notables, mais il est essentiel que les réformes se concrétisent davantage. Permettez-moi encore, avant de conclure, de remercier le rapporteur pour son excellent rapport. Je vous remercie.
Merci pour votre intervention. Madame Chona, vous avez la parole.
Merci, Madame President, distinguished colleagues. First, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the PACE delegation for their important observation mission during Albania's parliamentary election and the thorough report they have prepared, and of course our colleague Luz Martinez, CEO, for introducing today the key findings of this report. We welcome the report's recognition of the out-of-country voting process as a key milestone in Albania's democratic development. The participation of the diaspora is not only a triumph for democracy, but also a vital step forward in Albania's European integration and the strengthening of our institution. Ensuring a fair and credible election is crucial, not only for the legitimacy of the results, but for the continued advancement of democratic standards of Albania. These elections represent the best Albania has held in 35 years of democracy. Nonetheless, we remain committed to continuing our efforts to fully implement OSCE ODIHR recommendation. We also acknowledge the need to advance our political culture in order to strengthen public trust, enhance governance, and fully align with European standards. We appreciate the report's positive assessment of the elections' competitiveness and professionalism, despite the highly polarized political environment as it is foreseen in this report. We recognize the importance of the PACE delegation findings and recommendations. At the same time, we express some concerns that are in this report regarding certain allegations related to the misuse of administrative resources, voter pressures, and intimidation. These allegations, which appear to be largely based on politically motivated disinformation from the opposition, not only in Albanian language, but even in English language as it was today, were not substantiated by credible evidence and have been overwhelmingly dismissed by competent national institutions, including the Central Election Commission and the judiciary. The Albanian government has undertaken concrete legal and administrative measures to ensure compliance with the electoral code, maintain the neutrality of the civil servants, and prevent misuse of public resources. These include ongoing internal monitoring by the Council of Ministers and the suspension of civil servants running for public office, demonstrating our institutional commitment to fair and competitive electoral process. Recognizing the importance of effective and independent investigation of electoral crimes, since 2021, we have placed such cases under the jurisdiction of SPAC. There is a task force that is established to ensure that all credible allegations of vote buying and other electoral offences are thoroughly investigated. In conclusions, we reaffirm our full commitment to the integrity, transparency, and democratic legitimacy of the 11th May election, and as majority, we stand behind the legitimacy of this election as a true reflection of the Albanian people's democratic will. Thank you.
Merci pour votre intervention. Monsieur Bakounet, vous avez la parole.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, dear members of Assembly. It's a great honor for me to be here in the place where democracy, rule of law, human rights are valued. I am here as a member of Ukrainian delegation to remind you that Russia is terrorist and their government must have responsibility for the aggression against Ukraine, for air attacks and for brutal full-scale war, which Russia continues in Ukraine for more than 12 years, especially last 3 years. Unfortunately, last night, terrorist Russia again attacked Ukrainian civilian cities, especially our capital, Kyiv, with air defense, with combined air attack. Just that night, Russian missile hit an apartment building in Kyiv and killed 9 people. Our condolences to the families who lost their loved ones, who was injured, and who had their homes destroyed by terrorist Russia. I want to underline that last week Russia launched missiles or drones on Ukrainian civilian cities every night. Every night. These attacks are more combined with drones and with missiles and are getting stronger and stronger. Russia continues to kill Ukrainians every day and every night, unfortunately. So, despite the escalation of the Iran-Israel war, the world should not lose focus on the war that Russia continues against Ukraine. This could make Russian government feel that they can avoid responsibility for their crimes. That's why Europe must be united and start international tribunal on the crime of Russian aggression. Dear friends, you understand that Russian soldiers don't stop in Ukraine. Where they go, there is death and destruction. They bring darkness. It's terror. Europe must be prepared to stop aggressor with support of brave Ukrainian army. Our brave Ukrainian people can stop this aggressor. Please help us, support us, and send us more and more air defense system to defend our civilian cities, to defend our civilian Ukrainians, and implement secondary sanctions. This is the only way to bring true peace. Thank you.
Merci pour votre intervention. Monsieur Lux, vous avez la parole.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Ich möchte mich ausdrücklich bei unserem Berichterstatter Frank Schwabe bedanken für die wichtige Arbeit, die er aufgezeigt hat in seinem Bericht und auch für die Arbeit, die hier geleistet wird in dieser Versammlung in einer Zeit, wo 9 EU-Mitgliedstaaten sich entschieden haben, offen diese Versammlung, die Institutionen des Europarates, die Menschenrechtskonvention anzugreifen. Es ist gut, wenn wir durch unser Handeln die Menschenrechtskonvention verteidigen, aber die Menschenrechtskonvention, der Minderheitenschutz und die Demokratie in Europa werden nicht nur in offenen Briefen angegriffen, sie werden in Taten angegriffen. Und ein Beispiel dafür sehen wir am kommenden Wochenende, wenn Viktor Orban und seine Regierung in Ungarn versuchen, den CSD in Budapest zu verbieten. Menschenrechte und Demokratie in Europa werden nicht nur an Orten wie diesen verteidigt, sie werden auch auf den Straßen verteidigt, wenn sich mutige Menschen autoritären Kräften wie Herrn Orban und seinem Verbot des CSDs in Budapest entgegenstellen. Deswegen habe ich eine Bitte an Sie alle. Schaffen Sie Öffentlichkeit für den CSD in Budapest. Kommen Sie mit uns, kommen Sie mit vielen anderen Kolleginnen und Kollegen am Wochenende nach Budapest lassen wir es Herrn Orban nicht durchgehen, dort nicht nur die LGBT-Gemeinschaft anzugreifen, sondern die Europäische Menschenrechtskonvention. Wir können alle viele Dinge und Fortschritt unternehmen, der hier in diesem Bericht zu Recht genannt wird, aber wir müssen auch dann, wenn die Fragen existenziell sind, Haltung zeigen. Und ich habe eine weitere Bitte an Sie, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen. Der Fortschrittsbericht zeigt auf, dass sich die Versammlung zunehmend humanitären Katastrophen in der Welt widmet. Das finde ich ausdrücklich gut. Wer wären wir, wenn wir wegschauen bei dem Leid in Gaza in unserer unmittelbaren Nachbarschaft? Nur sollten wir doch aufpassen, dass wir im Angesicht der vielen humanitären Katastrophen der Welt nicht selektiv werden. Ich möchte beispielsweise daran erinnern, dass alleine im Sudan seit April 2023 mehr als 500.000 Kinder laut sudanesischen Ärzten an den Folgen einer Hungerkatastrophe gestorben sind. Das internationale System insgesamt ist nicht in der Lage, diese Ausmaße von Leid zu hindern, auch weil unsere Mitgliedstaaten nicht genug unternehmen, um substanziell die humanitäre Hilfe in der Welt zu finanzieren. Und ich finde, das ist doch etwas, was wir auch in unsere nationalen Aktivitäten mitnehmen sollten, Anwältinnen und Anwälte eines internationalen, starken, humanitären, regelbasierten Systems zu sein. Herzlichen Dank.
Merci pour votre intervention. Monsieur Sabella, vous avez la parole. Monsieur Sabella.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Allow me to address you today with the ongoing war in Gaza. The suffering in Gaza today is beyond politics. It's a moral test for all of us. Over 55,000 Palestinians have been killed, the majority women and children. More than 80% of Gaza's population has been displaced. Entire neighborhoods, hospitals, schools lie in ruins. This is not a conflict, it is a catastrophe. Gaza today is unlivable. Food insecurity has reached famine level. Access to clean water, medical care, and basic shelter is disappearing. The targeting of civilians, doctors, journalists, the destruction of entire communities, and the targeting of those civilians who line to seek food aid are considered by experts as war crimes under international law. We appeal to your conscience. Silence in the face of such horror is complicity. The call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire is not political. It is a life-saving demand. There must also be accountability for violations of international humanitarian law, regardless of the perpetrator. The credibility of Europe and the international system depends on its ability to uphold the same human rights principles everywhere, including in Palestine. This war will not bring security, not to Palestinians and not to Israelis. The only viable path forward is a negotiated political solution based on international legitimacy, an end to occupation, the recognition of Palestinian statehood, and equal rights for all people. Europe can and must play a role in facilitating this. Political courage is needed now more than ever. I ask you not to see this only through the lens of diplomacy or policy, but through the eyes of the mothers searching the rubble for their children, through the eyes of an entire generation that knows only siege, war, and loss. Unfortunately, this situation has become shared both by Palestinians,
Vous devez conclure,
Israelis,
s'il vous
and
plaît.
others in the region. Help us give our people a future of dignity, peace, and justice. Thank you very much.
Merci pour votre intervention. La liste des orateurs est maintenant épuisée. Monsieur le rapporteur Joab, vous avez 3 minutes pour répondre aux intervenants. Merci.
Madam President, dear colleagues, I have the difficulty that most of the questions concerns the election observation mission in Albania, but maybe next time I can take part and then I can answer to these questions as well, but for sure you have the opportunity to have a bilateral exchange of opinions as well. So on Gaza we will have a debate this week, a very serious one. I think we deal very much with Gaza, knowing that for sure we have a kind of connection with Israel and Palestine, but it's not a usual part of this organization. So I would say we discuss it a lot, and yeah, I think it's possible to discuss it there more in detail. Although Mr. Nemeth for sure cannot join here us in the afternoon, I have to say that he asked me something in the morning. He hoped that I don't mean the 9 countries who wrote this letter on migration. He hopes that I don't mean them if I say there are some people who undermine this organization with our values and rules. And the truth is, although I criticize this letter and I don't know why they sent it and what is the intention, I don't mean them. What I mean are people who use the migration issue, let's say, to split our societies and to undermine this organization and at the end with the values, because we have just a focused debate on migration as a kind of problem. For sure there are problems, yes, and there are criminals, and we have to do everything to defend them. We have to try to take control, we have to know who comes to us. But at the end, I think we need a totally different approach on migration, because migration always happened in the history of the countries of this organization. And normally, if you look into the history of our countries, and maybe if you look into the history of even a single person who are sitting here, I don't know who don't have a migrant background here. I have a migrant background in my family, and this was always helpful for our societies. And when I say that there are someone who are undermining the values and the rules of this organization, I mean those one, and it was Scholl Nemeth, who spoke about court activism. I don't even know what it means. What means court activism? Should it mean that we have a convention, and the convention is 75 and something years old, and we should stick to the convention, let's say, in the way it was when the Council of Europe was founded? For sure, something happened in 75 years. We have a totally different approach on the women's rights, on children's rights, on the rights of LGBTIQ, and on the rights of migrants, of people who come to us as well. And for sure, it's good that we have an independent court who, as all the courts worldwide, in all the national capacity as well, look into the situation and have a kind of development. I again want to assure our full solidarity to all the guys and our colleagues who spoke from Ukraine. They should have our support wherever we can give the support. Thank you very much. All the best.
Je vous remercie pour votre intervention. La discussion est close. Nous allons maintenant nous prononcer sur les décisions du Bureau figurant dans son rapport d'activité. Y a-t-il une objection à l'adoption de ces décisions? Il n'y a pas d'objection. Le rapport d'activité est donc approuvé. La prochaine séance aura lieu demain matin à 10 h, conformément à l'ordre du jour de la présente partie de session. La séance est levée. Merci.